All right. Hello, welcome, good morning, and welcome to the Coaches Corner today, brought to you by the Endurance Lab, where you can join the coaches live as we recap the week and answer your questions from the forum. My name's Jason Flores, one of your Endurance Lab coaches, and I'm joined by coaches Taya Freestead, Ian Murray, Mitch Stangerman, and our nutritional therapist, Andrea Cullen. You notice there's lots and lots of windows going on today, and so we also have a special guest. I'm going to pass this on over to Ian Murray to introduce our guest today, but just a reminder that we are live on several different platforms today, so this also gives you as a viewer a chance to be part of the show to ask your questions to Dr. Brad today. So jump on live and be part of the show. So Ian, tell us who we've got on the show today.
All right, we've got a very special guest today. He's world famous. He's an international foot doctor of mystery. Brad McAmon is the CEO of Southernmost Foot and Ankle Specialist. He's a board certified podiatric surgeon. Did I pronounce that right, Brad?
Nice job.
Perfect. He's been practicing for 21 years. He's worked on the medical staff at the Ironman World Championships, and he has raced the Ironman World Championships one time as well. And he was also the primary medical care for the Key West contingent at the ITU World Championships this year.
That's quite
so he's actually very well known in the Florida Keys for solving thousands of people's problems with their feet from cycling and running. And if you actually drive down the Florida Keys, as you get closer to Key West, you'll see a number of billboards with Dr. Brad up there, and he's the guy who keeps people running in the Keys.
Yeah, several locations in the area. That's definitely impressive. Being a physician myself, at maintaining that sort of thing and having the kind of the popularity you have, Dr. Brad, it's not an easy job.
Thank you.
Yeah. So we've got a bunch of jump into questions here, but was there anything that you wanted to tell our audience, Dr. Brad, kind of that maybe something that Ian didn't miss, or that as far as what you're doing in your day-to-day?
No, thank you, Ian, for the glowing introduction. There's as far as foot injuries, running, biking. A lot of people just try to say, "Oh, I'll do fine. I'll push through," and ignore it. And most of the stories that come to me are, "Well, I had this a month ago, and now I'm still dealing with it." And most of the stuff could be addressed early. So I'll just start off with that right off the bat. But I think it's human nature to ignore the problem, think it's going to go away. But a lot of times, real quick intervention, it shouldn't be a big deal.
A lot of time. So, okay. So coaches, I know we've all got questions. If someone wants to pick that up, drop a question in, and let's go rapid fire, and we'll kind of see how the conversation goes.
All right, well, I'll lead it off real quick because I know this is going to be probably the question that everybody wants to know. And I know there's only one correct answer. So what is the best shoe for running?
For running, the best shoe for running is the best shoe individually for that person.
Like it.
And I mean, I could go on and on, but the simple shoe fitting question, I'm going to work a little bit backwards of why do people come see me with foot problems? And I would say the majority of the running foot problems are from the wrong shoe type, and too old of a shoe. And it's really, everyone has their biomechanics and should be picking a shoe based on their biomechanics, not the color, not the ad.
Whoa. You're telling me the color is not as important as the biomechanics of a shoe? Come on, Brad.
Well, and then who's wearing the shoe? If somebody famous was fast in that shoe, then exactly. I don't know why you shouldn't be equally as fast. So yeah, someone coming in with a hot pink Newton that runs a 12-minute mile, has a stress fracture. We've got a lot to start talking about. And that's the typical scenario. Someone just says, "Oh, it was lightweight, it was cute, it matched my outfit." Yeah, but the word pronation never came into the conversation. So real simple, there's a cushion shoe, there's a stability shoe, there's a motion control shoe. And you should buy the type of shoe, not the color. Or if I say even one step further, when you go to an example of a racing flat or Newton or a 4 foot or mid-foot to 4 foot driven shoe with a low heel drop, you're selling a running style, not just the shoe itself. And that's what the ad should be, saying, hey, do you run a 6 or 7 minute pace? Okay, you can get this shoe, not, hey, look how flashy the shoe is. So there should be labels on the box, warning, are you overweight? You can't wear this. Warning, if you overpronate, you're going to have tendonitis with this. Heel drop's been a big thing as well, where people don't realize what a heel drop is. And just a quick, I'll throw this example. Heel drop measuring the back of the shoe to the front of the shoe. This is a traditional 10 millimeter heel drop. Well, when the minimalist shoes came out, they started making a 0 drop, where this was literally flat across here. A lot have morphed back to a 4 millimeter or 5 millimeter, and there's nothing wrong with that shoe. It's just you need to be aware that if you don't have the Achilles flexibility to let your heel drop, you're going to have some serious Achilles tendonitis or calf pain or injuries and be wondering what happened to me. And it's because of your new pretty shoe.
Yeah, so I've experienced that myself, but for, literally your heel drop story. But what can an athlete do as far as getting help on that shoe choice?
There, different shoe stores, if you have a shoe fitter or someone, that's very good, can help. There's, you get on a treadmill in these fancy running stores and they can help you with that. But down here in the Keys, it's me, and there's no store. There's not even a store. It's all online. So, but I do have a lot of patients I went to Miami. I went to this big running store and I got on a treadmill. I say, well, who fit you? And it's some guy. And usually there's one expert in the store, but they train some high school kid that showed them. So yes, there are places and ways to get it checked, but I can't say that it's always completely accurate. And the other one is, they'll come in, I'll say, well, how fast did you go? And they say, oh, I went all out. I didn't want to be embarrassed. And they're in some full-on sprint on this treadmill.
You run a little different.
When they're normally an 11-minute mile pace. And I said, well, of course, if you're up on your toes, you're not going to pronate. It doesn't matter if you're on your toes running. You can show anything you want. So, yes, there's avenues, but it's not about just a teenager in a treadmill in a fancy store. If you ask, I guess the best advice there is if they went to a running store, say, get at least a little bit of credentials of who's doing the analyzing.
So how accurate is what the shoe feels like? Like in Ireland, all our shoe shops are very small. And when I was in the States, I literally put on every shoe. And despite what I may have wanted, I went with what felt best. And I didn't have an issue after that. But I'm also afraid to change the shoe. Which was a Brooks, quite well supported shoe. And I know it's not the fastest, but, I haven't had an issue.
Yeah, well, two things on fit. One, obviously, the shoe needs to fit your foot, and there's a lot to be said about fitting of the shoe. And there's two things here. One is the support of the shoe and the actual overall fit of the shoe. So, one, it needs to fit, and it's not one of those things where I hear a lot of people say, oh, it'll stretch out, or, if it doesn't fit right away.
It doesn't fit.
It's not going to fit later. Other people say, oh, get an extra size up when you buy a running shoe. Well, so you're going to go in the store, find that, oh, this fits me perfect. This is an 11. It fits like a glove. I'll take the 12. No, you get what fits you perfectly, but make sure there's enough room in the toes that that it's not too tight, that it does want to feel good. A little bit of room left. Yes. And of course, wearing the socks you're going to wear, measuring and wearing these first thing in the morning when you're not swollen. If your foot's swollen at the end of the day, that's going to be a different foot than than in the morning. Or if you run late in the day, maybe you do want to try it on later in the day. So fit is important from that standpoint. But even if the shoe feels good, because now they've got memory foam and all kinds of fancy things so you feel great in the shoe, but that may be a complete cushion, unsupported shoe that only a perfect neutral runner can wear. So there's a lot of people that say, oh, the shoe is so comfortable, and I think that's where they get in a lot of trouble. Like Skechers had these super comfortable, almost like slipper-like shoes, or the Nike Free that a lot of the kids are wearing, and all these injuries come in because they're like, oh, it's so comfortable and lightweight and cool colors. So yeah, that's something you could put on in the store and be extremely comfortable with, yet if you overpronate, you are in completely the wrong shoe. So comfort, yes, but comfort within the category of the shoe that you need for foot type. I guess that's the best answer to that one. So is to really understand, are you a neutral runner? Do you overpronate, or do you really overpronate? Are the questions. So once you know that, I think that opens you up to, okay, here's my window of the shoes that I can look at as far as comfort and color. So I think that's really step one for fitting, is to know where's your neighborhood.
And then so for somebody like me, I'm not a runner. I might run occasionally when I'm on vacation and I don't have access to a bike.
Running away from something.
I can still get injured though, right? I can still get injured. Well, one, for not knowing how to run, but two, for the wrong shoe. But so when you go, so I guess I'm saying that because I'm an ignorant when it comes to getting the right fit for running. When you go to a store then and you try and you have somebody assisting you in choosing the correct shoe, do you have to run for them to see how much you pronate, or is it possible to see it other ways?
Yeah, you can actually just, if you stand barefoot and stand on one foot and just look and see how much does your foot roll in, you can tell just looking at that. But I should say I can tell just looking at that. It may not be for everyone, but and most people know, they say, oh yeah, I've had a flat foot my whole life, or they say, no, I'm pretty good. If you look at other people's feet, if you look at your foot and there's a nice arch there and it doesn't flatten out completely, or if you ever walked on a beach and you look at your track and say, what alien was that? There's different things that are there. So no, you don't have to have a treadmill. You don't have to have any of those things. It's more about how much motion is there, and just looking at someone's foot, you can see it. Okay. Also, if you've had shoes and they wear out horribly and look like a big wedge angle in the heel when they wear out, that's telling you something as well. And the typical pattern, this is very confusing, is if you take the outside corner and this wears out on the outside corner, is actually a sign that the foot pronates or rolls inward. And everyone says, well, I roll out because my heel wears out on the outside corner. Point. And so when it rolls in, everyone comes down, yeah, like that.
That's my husband too. Interesting.
So everyone comes down in a varus, or their foot out here. You come down flat, and then now is when you're right before push off is when you determine how much you're going to pronate. So at this moment, how much you go in is when you pronate. And everyone's going to pronate a little bit, and that's fine. And then there's push off, and that push off's very stable because it's all on the forefoot. So what happens here when it pronates is you've got to get back here to neutral before you can push off. So the only way to get back there quickly is to actually pivot. There's this little micro pivot that takes place, and it's on the outside corner of the foot. If you ever watch someone who really pronates, you can watch in slow motion, and their foot's actually pivoting like this, then pushes off, because it's the fastest way to do it. So if that's worn out completely, it's usually someone that needs an orthotic in their shoe and or a stability type shoe. And again, stability shoe having the extra buildup in through here, and of course reinforced all the way through. One more note on the stability versus cushion shoes. I'm saying, oh, stability shoe, I'm wearing some kind of orthopedic clunky shoe. And basically there's the cushion shoe and the stability shoe is just a difference in density of the materials on the medial side, and or a little bit of a buildup or plastic or carbon fiber plate inside there.
Interesting.
So could we transition a little bit to cycling for a moment? And of course, there's also the choice of shoes for cycling. And I think for cycling, at least what I hear a lot is people complaining about the arch or the top part of the foot being, let's say, too high or too low, and finding something that fits there versus how it feels, right? Because you're not walking with that shoe, obviously. What are some of the common complaints that you hear or issues that you see with cycling shoes?
Well, with cycling, there's obviously, again, there's fit, and someone as myself with a wider foot, real limited if you've got a wider foot as far as a cycling shoe, and most are really narrow. I mean, a lot I couldn't even look at, let alone put them on. But I did find certainly Shimano and Bont. Here's my shoe, Bont Riot, by far one of the wider shoes. And of course, when you get a toe that's a little more natural shaped, you can get a wider foot in there as opposed to some of the more narrow toe box. So first of all, just getting the right company of a shoe fit is number one. And of course, then whatever straps are on you. I've had patients come in and say it's too tight, and I say, well, did you loosen this strap? They say, oh, I didn't know I could. As well, yeah, it's Velcro. That's what it's designed for. And some are heat moldable, and there's some of those options. And I had a really pair of cool Garneaus. I was going to be flashy, bright red, and heat mold it, but I could almost melt the thing and still couldn't heat it enough to stretch it to my foot. So I think those are for little minor tweaks at the end. But I think just getting the right shoe brand that is going to fit you, and I'm sure everyone has just written off certain shoes, just I can't wear that type of shoe. So getting the right shoe to start with. Other things, as far as the insole inside the shoe, and if someone has a high arched foot, there's not a lot of room inside there, but all of these insoles inside the shoe, are removable, and some are real thick because they want to give you extra cushion. They want to attempt to give you a little arch support. I mean, usually it's just extremely thin, but changing this out and grabbing another, let's say just a real thin insole and just drop that in is going to, those couple of millimeters can make a big difference. So if you're talking about just fitting of, as far as the top of the shoe is concerned, that's part of it. But most of the time I'll find someone's complaining of something too tight here is they're strapping the shoe down or tightening it to hold it on their foot. And there's a different fit issue going on rather than the wrong shoe. They're trying to clamp their foot in because the cleat's in the wrong position or just their mechanics are off completely. So I think if trying a shoe on, if it's already too tight in the top, that would be an obvious issue. But I think out riding and you're feeling it there all the time, I'd look at mechanics before I would start throwing a shoe away and get another shoe, and then you'd find, I keep having the same problem. Well, it's you, not the shoe.
Yeah. So getting that bike fit and getting, I'll give myself as an example. I had a bike fit recently, and the fitter, the specialist, told me that I had a 10-degree rotation on my right foot, and so that had to be corrected with a wedge between the cleat and the shoe. That was, putting my foot in the right position. I was having knee pain on that leg. So that corrected the problem. The other question I have for you on the cycling part is hot foot. So some cyclists complain that they have hot feet and nothing. And from what I understand, the feeling that your feet is super hot, that you just want to run them through cold water is not a temperature issue, right? Is it an issue of pressure?
Well, this is going to be a several part answer, because that's your number one, the hot foot issue. And first of all, burning in the foot is a true burning, like on fire burning, is usually nerve pain when it's really burning. There's another one where it's the intrinsic muscles. There's little tiny muscles between each of the metatarsals, and those intrinsics can just be on fire from firing and firing when they really didn't need to be firing so often. So if I go back to let me do one thing first. Let me show you a true pathological problem of the foot. Well, then we'll get that out of the way, and then we'll talk about general hot foot pains. A neuroma. Here's my dramatic photo of a neuroma. Let me see. Can you see that?
Oh,
right there.
Yeah.
Okay. See the bright yellow right here.
Mm-hmm.
That is basically a nerve going between the third and the fourth metatarsal head. And when it's actually pinched or compressed, and if you think of the nerve like a wire with insulation around it, the metatarsals are rubbing up against there. This insulation gets bigger and thicker and thicker, and fibrosis. And it's an actual, neuroma would indicate nerve tumor. It's not really a tumor. It's just an enlarged coating around the nerve in that space. So if you truly have, again, that going on, and your foot is being pinched from side to side or getting tighter, then you're getting numbness or shooting. And when that's in between the third and the fourth toes, and it's specifically there and it radiates out, or numbness, and you want to take your shoe off and just rub it, that's truly a neuroma. And so that's going to be when there's an isolated issue that it's not really going to matter what shoe or other mechanics that we're talking about. There's something going on in there. And it's very common with runners and cyclists, anyone that has a real narrow shoe. Now, if you're out there for a 100-mile ride and you're starting to swell, well, that's going to create pressure as well. So it might be fine in the 30 and 40-mile rides, but when you get longer, then the symptoms come on. And so a neuroma is one item to look for, but specifically there, it's about 85% of neuromas are in that space. You can have other neuromas, but that's where they really are the most. So there are treatments with that. We give different injections, surgery in extreme cases, but there are some injection type options for that. So that aside, that would be the one thing you want to check, make sure you don't have that and that this burning is all over. Now, the burning pain in general and hot foot, so to speak, a lot of times, again, goes back to the mechanics of the foot. If the cleat is in the wrong position and the foot is working too hard, where this goes back to let me show you another picture. And I get a lot of people who come in and say, well, my cleat was it was on my fitter, put it in the perfect spot. It's right under the ball of my foot. And so a lot of fitters, they say, well, here's the big toe. And we look at, here's the big toe joint. So let's put the cleat under the big toe joint because I can find that. Well, if you look at the metatarsals, they actually go on an angle from the first to the fifth on an angle.
And for regular people, metatarsals are your toes.
Yeah. Yeah, these are your toes that he's showing pictures of. That's right.
So what happens are, if you move the cleat back, you're lining it up more with the fifth metatarsal head, which you find to be a little bit more accurate than the first metatarsal, and just depends on who did the fitting. And it sounds almost redundant, but I always tell myself, just move the cleat all the way back. Just move it all the way back almost every single time, and it works. You'd think that some of the shoe companies, I don't know, they're going to start maybe moving it further back. I don't know, but that can cause its own set of problems. But that helps a lot. And why does that work is the question of, so if you're cycling here and it's too far out this way, well, your foot's doing a lot of work in a lever arm like this. If it's back here, then there's not as much of a lever arm as far as what the entire foot has to do work-wise if your fulcrum is here versus here. So, and I see that a lot also with a lot of people doing a spin class where they have just a cage and they can put their foot way forward or way back. And same thing, the dynamics are how much is their foot doing when their foot really shouldn't be doing a whole lot. If this is a closed kinetic chain and you're locked in place, there shouldn't be a whole lot of this going on. You know, some people point their toe a little, but there shouldn't be a lot of that rocking. And so to get back to the hot foot goes in between all of the metatarsals, again, between all these bones are little tiny muscles in there. And they're just stabilizers of the foot. They're not really designed to help you cycle. But if they get overworked from all that micro motion, they're going to become engorged with blood and inflamed and literally hot and swollen. They're going to compress the little nerves in between, and basically the whole foot is just one swollen ball, and it's pressing on everything. And that's when you just want to take that shoe off and just stick it in ice or whatever, but basically getting the shoe off, massaging it, and letting those nerves wake up again. But sometimes then they wake up, and then all the signal comes flying through that's been blocked for a while, and you just have to sit there with your foot on fire. So to go back to one more thing on the wedges, and I get that a lot. So I'm saying, oh, I was wedged here and angled here and wedged, and it's like it's a slippery slope to start wedging and angling the shoes when sometimes it just needs an arch support in the cycling shoe. And I know this was many years ago a big thing of why should we put an orthotic in a shoe that you don't run on? Well, there's some studies, well, probably 20 years ago now, and they did some excellent video analysis of the cyclists with and without orthotics. And they watched their lower leg back and forth with all this excess motion if they were overpronated, because they're still pushing down, they're still pronating, and when you pronate, your leg internally rotates. So if you're internally rotating your leg every stroke, and they watched all this deviation on the film on these Olympic cyclists, and then they put an orthotic in, and now it was stable, that's a whole lot of energy efficiency that you can gain. So an orthotic, if you overpronate and you run with an orthotic, that orthotic should be in your cycling shoe. Now, it might not have to be the high-end custom one, but enough to control that little bit of motion that's there. So I see that a lot with hip and knee issues, just having an orthotic in the shoe, also with the correct cleat position. There's one more thing that's also a real technical issue when it comes to cycling shoes. It's called forefoot varus, where if you've been pronating for a long time, your forefoot actually is angled up. And that's something that they'll start wedging for to balance the forefoot. Now you're wedging it further this way on the forefoot, but you're still wanting to rotate this way. So you can, if someone starts wedging, you can go down a slippery slope of a lot of wedging, angling, and rotating, and just get a little bit messed up. So
the next thing you know, you're cycling on the side of your foot.
Yeah, absolutely. I've had patients that were wedged out and angled for like 12 reasons, and they come in with lateral foot pain. I said, well, how about going back to flat, and it fixes everything. So
yeah.
You can overanalyze in some cases as well.
And lose sight of things and start going, yeah, no, makes sense.
So it looks like we need to have pedal cam.
Yeah, we do.
Oh, gosh.
Should start having that in live streams.
That would be I have a question.
Go ahead.
So when I started triathlon, all of my problems were at the start with ankles, plantar fasciitis, both feet. And then you start going through, people telling you need this, that shoe, this, that. And it all actually, I feel, went back to my cycling shoes. Because when you start cycling and you buy your first bike, someone generally goes, I'll throw in a pair of shoes with that. And you end up cycling in the pair of shoes that you were given. And I had some Shimanos, and they would actually bend. So they weren't taking the force right. So but once I went into some Specialized, which cost a bit, I was okay. So the question is, advice for people when they're starting. We don't want to go OTT with overanalyzing everything, but where is a good place to start with? We speak all the time on the Endurance Lab about the bike fit. I think that's absolutely crucial, and it's something else no one's really told about when you start. You just get on a bike. So where's a good place to start with bike shoes and running shoes, where you're making smart decisions, but you're also not, getting yourself in a pickle with too much?
$900 shoes.
Yeah, like you don't have to start out and buy that shoe when you start running.
Nice.
Sorry, that's Nike's new $250 shoe, and it is crazy fast, but so no, don't start there because it's going to make you faster. Start where, again, if you get the right type of shoe, there are, let's take, for example, if you take ASICS shoes, they have a stability shoe where it's the Kayano That's going to be their $160 shoe. They have their 3,000, 2,000, 1,000, all stability shoes, but the 1,000 down, you can get last year's model on a sale for $40. But it's a good shoe, quality shoe. It's a stability shoe, and it's going to fit all of your needs as long as it's in the right category. So you can always get last year's color, sometimes 40, 50% off. And that's a great place to start if you're in the right category. And then you start to know what you like, and you're not paying the, high-end retail that says, hey, this came out today, got to have it type of thing. So with running shoes, again, back to the correct type, but you get what you pay for. And the shoes that have the newest high-tech, lighter weight, more stable, you're going to pay for that. But what happens is it trickles down. And that's the nice thing with technology, is what they put in there today at the high-end shoe, you're going to see in next year's second-tier shoe, and the following year, the third, the one after that. So they're not wasting this technology. They're just using the old technology on the cheaper shoes. So you might get that clearance shoe, but it was the super shoe 3 years ago, and so it's still a great shoe. So I think that's a great place to start. One, you can learn about the shoes and what it is, but still have some high-tech technology. Now, the bike shoe really comes down to, and you talk about that flexibility, where, if it's a carbon fiber bottom like this, that's not going to bend. That's not going to move. That's not going to give you all those little intrinsic hot foot areas. And also your transition of power in each stroke, you're not going to lose it because you have a rubber bottom shoe or something flexible. And, you want to put as much power forward, and I'll leave the power, statements to these guys. But you can get I would say get the lowest priced carbon fiber shoe that you could get would be the best way to go. I mean, even this one here, this shoe, carbon fiber shoe, about $120. And it's got the same bottom, same characteristics as the $300-$400 shoes.
And they last longer than running shoes.
Oh yeah, that's a great point. I mean, running shoes, I'm going through them every couple of months. That's a big expense. The bike shoes are there forever. So one got dirty, so you get a new one. So I think it's better
until you're no longer allowed to bring them inside because of the smell.
Yeah. Now Ian puts a few more miles on, so I think his can walk on their own in some cases. But so yeah, I think if you look at a bike shoe as part of buying the bike, and part of the cost of, hey, I'm getting a bike, am I getting a carbon bike and the shoe goes with it? It's really got to be part of that. I wouldn't go cheap on the shoe, because those foot issues, those hot foot issues, the loss of power, you're defeating the purpose of having the new nice bike. I think the shoe has to go with it, but it doesn't have to be the $500 bike shoe, no.
And another, actually on that, so after having so many foot issues, I got a really good Specialized, and I actually got the cyclist version rather than the triathlon version, because I felt it was more important to be stable and solid in my shoe on the bike rather than worrying about my transition and getting my shoe on quickly. Do you see a difference between the triathlon shoes where you can get in and out of them quickly? Like, would you recommend that they're the same, or if someone had foot issues, they're better sticking with a traditional cyclist shoe?
Yeah, great question there. It's, again, whatever is going to fit and be more comfortable for you. Yeah, the triathlon shoe designed to drain a little better, a little more light, more breathable, one strap, quick entry, all of these things. But sometimes with the quick entry into the shoe, you sacrifice some of the comfort. You sacrifice that extra strap that can give you that perfect fit in there. So yeah, if you're doing a sprint triathlon and you need to zip in and out, and you're questioning whether you're going to wear socks or not and slipping the shoe on for a couple of seconds, then okay, that's a factor. But if you're going on a lot of rides and your transition time is going to be 12 minutes anyway, then no, it doesn't matter what shoe that you have. And a cycling shoe in a lot of cases is going to be a better shoe and a better fit for you. So I say look at both every time. And only when you're really racing and need a few seconds does the triathlon shoe come into play. But I think a lot of people are they're so biased, whether there's bike versus triathlon. It's like you're crossing into an evil world and you're not allowed to wear that shoe. So I would try them all on, certainly, and not be too biased either way. Absolutely.
Ian, did we have something from the runner side of the house, right? Up here as far as like materials running.
Brad actually got most of it. The one thing I would throw in there is the so I personally like to use the elastic laces on my shoes for racing. I don't use them for I don't use them much for training, but I do them for racing. What's your take on the different types of shoelaces we have out there?
I'm a little bit a lot OCD, so I try everything, and I usually try it on race day just to really put some
people
stress.
Don't do that.
And I don't advise anyone else to do it, but I like to really stress it out a little bit, make it interesting. So yeah, I've tried just about all the different laces, and I really wanted to like the stretchy one-time put in place lace. Because I'm someone who puts my shoes on, I tie it to find that perfect. It takes me, probably 12-mile run, stopping every half mile to adjust the laces, adjust, and I get that perfect tie it tight, and I never untie them again. I put my shoe on with a shoehorn. Even in transition, I use a shoehorn. My own little secret. I still take way too long in transition. That's a whole nother story.
He does.
Way too long. Cleaning my toes, changing my socks.
He's got a lazy
God, I'm the same.
Oh yeah. So don't ask me about transitions. But with the lace, I thought, okay, this could speed things up a little. But I could never get them really tight enough. So there's some really stretchy ones that I felt like they lost some of the support with running, that I just couldn't get them right. There's some that, there's a regular lace or it's a quick release. So I think those have a little better because they're not as super stretchy. So something that is a little stretch and a quick lock, I think is probably the best bet. But the really elastic ones just lose the whole reason that you have laces. So yes, I think there's a place for them, but also the type of shoe, and to get a little too technical, is the shoes have different eyelets that are in them, and some work real well and they lock the shoe down based on the design of the eyelets, and some are just generic eyelets and you need a traditional lace or it's just not going to work. And so there's all kinds of new technology coming out, and you can see it even in the new Nike, where it's just little tiny pieces here. There's not even a tongue on the shoe anymore. It's all just one piece. And so this I had to tie extremely tight just to hold this on, because this whole top, this fly knit, is just mesh. And I had to crank this down so tight that I don't think I can run a marathon. I have a marathon next month. I'm not going to wear this shoe, even though it would make me faster, no question. I just had to tie this so tight to hold it in place.
Brad's not going to break the 2-hour barrier.
That's what I was going to say, but
he's not able to ride the Nike.
That shoe's going to get you under.
It is safe. But the new material that a lot of the shoes have, and almost all of the companies are now coming out with it, all this new mesh around the front, they have designed it where they don't have those seams that cut in anymore to the bunion, and so anyone with bunion and fitting issues of shoes, all the new materials are fantastic because this can all be held in place without the seams cutting in there. So the fit of the upper with the laces and the eyelets, all of the above, you're going to have a much better fit with the shoes. So long story short, I think the elastic laces are going to have a little better edge because the fit of the shoe is getting better with the new technology, but not the really stretchy ones.
Do you wear them, Ian? I can't stand them. I feel like my foot is rolling, or I just hate them. My feet have to be happy.
So
you wear them.
I use lace locks on mine. But I crank them down, so there's not a lot of give in the elastic. So when I use them, because I have them in one of my pairs that I always race in, but when I run in them normally, the first 5 minutes aren't always the most comfortable. But then as my foot kind of gets the blood going through it and we get moving, then it's fine. On a race day, I don't care. I can deal with a little bit of discomfort if it makes me go faster, and I like saving that extra 5 seconds in transition. So, but I'm the guy who comes flying in with my feet on top of my cycling shoes, and then no socks. I'm like, hey, there's like 17 rocks and sand on my feet now, but that's fine. It'll be okay for 10K.
Actually, that's one thing we didn't talk about is numb feet. So we talk about the hot foot. Yeah. But the numb foot and then the numb foot trying to run, and you feel like you're gonna break your ankle. But is there any way to keep your feet warm on the bike despite the socks and the covers? Because you're just not moving them very much. Any tips?
As far as temperature is concerned, you're saying? As far as
numbness,
too cold?
because I think I'll jump in here too. Numbness and feeling cold are two different things, I guess, if you think about it. But I think what Andrea is alluding to is when you kind of lose blood flow to the toes in cold weather, and you just once those toes get cold, you can't get them warm again. I get that problem, and at the end of a ride, the bottom of my feet are white.
Yeah.
All right, that's a whole nother condition. So, well, one, in Key West, we don't come across this too much.
Not that cold there, you guys.
We have to move, Andrea. Let's move to a different place.
That's what Ian keeps telling.
There are some conditions where, like a Raynaud's phenomena, and some people will see this in their fingers if it's real cold out, or here in Key West, we'll see it if sometimes people go in the freezer aisle of the store, the only time they're exposed to cold, and actually their fingertips will turn white, and it can be extremely painful. And anyone who smokes or smoked in the past, it'll be 10 times worse. So that condition, and much more common in women, can also be occurring in the foot. And it's trauma or extreme temperature can cause that. And it's basically the blood vessels are constricting. And once they've constricted, they're not going to wake up right away. And if they're constricted and then your shoe is now tight and your foot is swollen, you're constricting it even more, it's going to take a few minutes, and you've got to get your foot free basically to allow it to unconstrict. But a lot of that is a spastic issue that the body just has to release it. So there's not a big secret to it, but if you're at that point where it's completely numb and you're coming up off the bike and need to start running, like Ian had said earlier, if he comes flying in with his feet on top of the shoes, you might just need to do that last half mile, feet on top, start wiggling those toes, because they really have to wake up, and it just needs to happen. And if you keep them squashed in there and you come flying in and all the stress that goes with that, there's no chance those are going to wake up when you're putting your shoe on, unless you have a transition like I do and stop, give it a little massage and lube up your feet, change your socks.
Nice. Yeah, we're coming up on time, and I do want to respect Dr. Brad's time. So I guess in the bigger picture of things, Dr. Brad, with questions you have from cyclists, triathletes, and runners, was there anything that we didn't hit that you may see in the clinic a lot of that we want to let our audience know, that to seek professional help, like something like that?
Well, most of our audience needs professional help anyways, but
besides that,
plantar fasciitis, I see 20 people every day with plantar fasciitis. That's a whole show in itself. But that's huge. Any of the Achilles tendonitis, plantar fasciitis, and that all goes down to, and again, just to summarize that, is flexibility. And flexibility of the fascia, flexibility of the Achilles. And it just can't stress it enough to increase your flexibility to help avoid those issues. And everything can be fine, but once you up the mileage, up the amount of time, all of these little weaknesses that you may have come into play. And a lot of it starts with flexibility. And of course, overpronation when you think of plantar fasciitis, but what makes you overpronate even more is lack of flexibility at the ankle. When you need more flexibility, your foot pronates to unlock itself, and then you get a little more flexibility, but again, you just put more stress on the fascia. So I'll leave that one as flexibility as the underlying issue there with Achilles and plantar fascia.
Yeah, definitely a big topic that we run into. Maybe a little bit less as cyclists, but definitely when cyclists try to run, that really becomes the issue. down as far as ankle mobility and that sort of thing. But excellent. From our live stream, some of our viewers did want to wish you a happy birthday, if I'm right. So
yes.
Some of your patients are on, wanted to say happy birthday to you. But also wanted to ask, kind of where could people find you online? I know you were from the southernmost foot and ankle specialist, but where would you like people to find you online as far as social media or on a website?
Our website for the practice is urgentfootcare.com. And that would be probably the easiest.
Sounds good. And if you're ever down there where there's only sun, it's always beautiful, and you can get a wonderful tan like Dr. Brad has. You can visit him at any of his offices down there. Was there anything else from the coaches before we wrap today?
Thanks, Brad. Appreciate it.
Yes, thank you so much.
That was extremely helpful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and so we'll have a post on the Endurance Lab forum. If you have any questions after the show's off live, we'll see if we can help as far as the coaches are concerned. If it's something out of our realm, we can see if we can get it to Dr. Brad and if he can put some insight in the forum. I think we're good. Otherwise, quick announcement about the preseason lab, Taya, or want to just put that in our post for the notes today?
Yes, I will put in the notes, but heads up that we have a new lab starting on the 28th. So check out our website, endurancelab.fit, for more information on that. And so just so we're mindful of time here.
Excellent. Again, I want to thank Dr. Brad today, and I want to thank everybody that joined in today watching the Coach's Corner. If it's your first time listening and would like to hear more content from the Endurance Lab, head over to your favorite podcast app and search the Endurance Lab, or head over to YouTube and search the same, and don't forget to click subscribe. And for more information on when the next lab is, head over to endurancelab.fit to learn where you can join us to train smart and get results. See everybody next week.